Hi, it's Anne Marie Segal. I'm recording this video in November 2024. I want to talk about how do you get started? How do you get started with anything? I've recently started swimming. I haven't talked about this at all in English. I don't believe on any videos, but I have spoken about it in my Italian videos. Um, it took me a long time to start thinking about self-care in terms of not just, oh, I used to do a lot of yoga. I used to do a lot of things. COVID hit, and now I'm finding myself, 4 years later, still not being as physically active as I want to be. Those thoughts were going on in my head for quite a long time before I finally said, I'm going to start swimming again. I had taken swimming lessons, I don't know, probably 10 years ago by now. And I had swum before that, but I wanted to get better at swimming, so had made a concentrated effort and it kind of stopped. I recognize that now that I've started swimming and it's been, oh, how many weeks has it been? Probably about a month. I'm trying to go 3 or 4 times a week. Most of the time I'm successful. I know that that could fall by the wayside at some point, although I've made an investment in it. I joined a gym. I bought fins. I bought goggles and a swim cap, the shampoo for your hair, everything else. I set aside time to go swimming. The good thing about swimming for me is that I go there and I'm in the pool and nothing else exists to some degree. I don't have any outside influences. Um, it is the same in a yoga class. But then there's always the question of if the class meets at the time that I need to, that I have available. For swimming, I have a much broader time period available to me. So for now, it's working. I think what I want to try to do more in the future, when I'm thinking about getting started with something and then the next thing and the next thing, it's just to ask, how is it working for me? Um, how could I find something that matches what I'm looking for and make it work better for me? And so that's what swimming's providing me now. And as I said, maybe my form of physical activity will change. I have been taking some other classes as well, Tai Chi and Qigong. Maybe I will add more time on the treadmill, more time on the bike. Haven't done that as much lately. But what I want to do is just keep up a program. It's not about which individual activity I'm doing. In my case, it's about staying very active. Um, Another thing, um, when I think about the starting of Italian, I started it up rather slowly. I'm talking about this again as an example of how to get started with something, but also because a lot of people ask me, how did you get started with learning Italian? It was very passive at the beginning. And then I decided to do something active. But I want to say it was about 3 years. No, yes, it was 3 years that I was learning Italian passively, listening to videos, listening to movies, trying to read things here and there before I really had primed the pump and was ready to take that next step. And sometimes that's what we need. We need to wade into the pool, to use that analogy, a little more slowly. Sometimes we need to jump right in. With the swimming, I jumped right in. I've recently taken a trip to Italy, and the second day I was back, I was swimming. Book. You've probably seen this book if you know who I am. It's a book that I wrote, and this is actually the second edition. How did I get started writing the book? Well, I started with a 10-page pamphlet that I was giving to clients when they asked me for interviewing tips, because interview prep is one of the things that I do in my coaching practice. So I didn't start from scratch. Again, I started with a pamphlet essentially and recommending others books. And at some point, I kept saying, "Oh, but I want them to know this, and I want them to know that, and I want them to know that." And the pamphlet got longer and longer. And lo and behold, one day I turned it into a book. It sounds like something, or it may feel like something that you need to get started overnight, but it isn't necessarily. I have written two books now that I've published, and I've written many, many other books that are either halfway done or part of the way done. And I'm thinking of publishing them at some point. And I just see this as part of the creative exercise to a large extent. It's easier to get started when you don't have this huge expectation on yourself that this has to become a bestseller or I have to finish this book to the end. Sometimes the process of writing it is enough or is enough for a period of time. The same way with swimming for me now, my goal is to be in the pool for 30 minutes and be active at least, say 27 or 28 minutes of that time, if not 30. Actively swimming. I've got a shoulder issue I'm working on, scapular dyskinesia. um, Comes from being on the laptop a lot and other things. But I've given up my laptop pretty much. I would say 99.9%. I've given up my laptop because I'm concerned about what the future will look like if I don't start to take care of myself in that way. And when I go swimming, more than trying to, oh, I'm going to do so many laps this fast and all that. It's really about getting my body to move in many different ways. And so for me, the goal right now, as I said, is just to be swimming for 30 minutes, not to do a certain number of laps in a certain time period or anything else. And I knew that about myself going in, that if I made the goal too hard, if I tried to push myself every single time I got into the pool faster and faster and faster and faster, I just wouldn't go. And so I decided it's better to go than to not go at all because I can't meet an unrealistic goal that I set for myself. Because it takes a lot sometimes for me to get off my chair and go over to the pool. It's getting easier and easier each time because I'm looking forward to it because I've set this habit. But I knew that if I made it too difficult for myself, if I had too many restraints on myself or too many things that I had to stretch goals, right, to reach, it wouldn't have happened. One last thing I was thinking about in terms of getting started is a conversation I had recently with my daughter, and she's in college. And she wanted to reach out to a professor. And a couple of days back and forth, we were texting, did you reach out to him? No, not yet. I'm going to do it tomorrow. Um, and then eventually it came to, I don't know what to say. I want to reach out, but I don't know what to say. And I said, this is interesting because this is the same thing that happens to many of my clients. They want to network. They want to look for a new job. They want to maybe internally make more contacts among the senior team or whatever team they're with inside of their own organization. And they just don't know where to start. And so part of the starting, part of the getting up the ramp to get something started is to figure out where to start. I've given you 3 examples now of how I've kind of warmed myself up. And in the case of swimming, I'm still doing that to reach a greater height, but just kind of get in at the entry level place. Learning Italian passively, being in the pool 30 minutes, writing 10 pages to be able to hand out to clients and get feedback, and then expanding that, and then eventually creating a book out of it. With the emails or the networking, the reaching out, whatever means it is, you can start to build up a file for yourself of what was successful in the past, and then start thinking about what could be successful in the future. And what I would say to that most pointedly is this. When I asked my daughter, what is it that you really want to tell him? Forget about a fancy email or anything formal. What is it you want to get across? And she was able to tell me. I said, okay, so now all you need to do is craft something to make that sound like a good email. And this is what I find with my clients over and over and over again because I work on this exercise repeatedly with clients. It could be something as complex is maybe not the word. Formalistic is a word I often use. Stilted even is the way I describe it as a resume. Or it could be something very open-ended. I want to meet somebody because I think they're an amazing speaker, and maybe one time I would love for them to bring me onto a panel. Or I want to be on a board, or I want a new role in my career, and I need this person to help me figure that out. Or I want to make a change in my life, and where do I start? All of these types of questions. To get first, before you try to clean it up, to just get first to like, what is it that you actually want as an outcome? What is it that you're trying to do? And then the second thing is, how can you calibrate, or how should you calibrate? And I use that word should very gingerly, but here it makes sense. How should you calibrate your ask? In the case of my daughter and the professor, if she's looking to get a research internship, for example, or a research position, she's not going to ask for that in the first email. She might ask, when are your office hours? Or could I talk to you about your research? Or something like that. She needs to calibrate the first reach out and then go from there. For example, she might not even like the professor when she meets him, and she's not met this professor yet, so this is not a comment on what I expect would happen. I don't know anything about this individual, but she may or may not even enjoy the research that person is doing, like the person, etc. So you don't want to set the bar too high. Again, like I've said in other contexts. Same for me. If my first goal was I'm going to write a book, before I even got a chance to formulate my ideas well, see what resonated with the potential audience, I might have still gotten to the end of writing that book and publishing it. But I don't think it would have been, frankly, any good if I had just jumped right in without setting the foundation. And so, as I'm saying, setting the foundation is really asking yourself, what am I looking for out of this thing that I'm about to do? And if you can clarify that for yourself, I can guarantee you that getting started will be that much easier.